We live in an era where video game adaptations don't have to suck anymore, but unfortunately Borderlands didn't get the memo. Not that I'm suggesting that this reminds me of the old days either, because at least something like the live-action Mario Brothers movie is wild and interesting. This is nothing. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Vault Hunter David.
Piss off.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are not in Kansas anymore, you are on Pandora. That's a better movie with a planet called Pandora in it.
Not the good one. You hear Pandora, it's like, oh, you mean the what, is that Disney or Universal? I think it's Disney. The Disney park?
What do we mean, the Avatar, like what part of a theme park? Yeah, that's Disney. Although notably, that was at Disneyland before Disney bought Fox, so it's not there because they bought Fox. It was already a deal they made. They just happened to end up owning it later on.
Lucky them.
Yeah. Also, the weird thing about this having a planet named Pandora and Avatar having Pandora is that Avatar and the first Borderlands video game both came out in the same year. So,
did they?
Yeah, 2009, I believe, was the first Borderlands. And I know it's not Avatar. I know that date very well, but...
I think I put Borderlands as existing for like 2 or 3 years older than that. I don't know why. Just in my head, it's an older franchise than
I don't think so.
What it apparently is.
Don't get me wrong. If someone corrects me and says technically it was 2008, I'll be like, fine. I don't know it that well, but I think it was 2009. So... Borderlands is what we're here to talk about on the Sci Fi Movie podcast that we do here.
Oh boy.
We'll start spoiler free. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilies. And of course, if you're enjoying the show, please do hit the like button on YouTube. It helps us out a bunch. And you can get bonus shows every month and other little extras and whatnot over at Patreon and help support the show and keep it coming. But I'll tell you more about all that at the end of the episode. So yes, welcome. One of last year's worst reviewed movies, everyone. A show which I debated moving to our Patreon show Extra Reels, which is a show dedicated to the worst movies ever made. But ultimately, I decided, you know what, no, there needs to be a hard rule for this. If a new sci-fi movie comes out, it doesn't matter how bad it is, it's for the sci-fi show because it's a new release. That's the rule.
And so instead we got Madam Web over on Extra Reels. I think that's what filled in that gap, which is just adding insult to injury at that point.
Yes, the epic 2.5 hour Madame Web review. But, so we didn't get to it when it was in theaters. And, do you know, once upon a time, it was actually on the schedule for us to go see it in theaters.
Yeah.
And then I saw the Rotten Tomatoes score and I said, you know what, David? I don't want to pay a movie ticket price to go see this piece of shit. We are going to wait until it's cheap to access.
I have never attempted to pirate something that is so easily available to me, just out of sheer force of wanting to make a statement.
So yes, Borderlands is based on a video game, or a video game series, depending on how you look at it. It's set on a planet. I mean, the video game at least, right? It's a co-op shooter game where you're on a planet, you're looking for the vault, but it's you know, it's a Diablo kind of style game, except instead of like top down melee magic combat, it's a first person shooter. So you shoot bad guys, you go and do quests, you pick up more guns that are slightly better than the guns you had before, rinse and repeat, you keep going until it ends. I have started like 3 or 4 different Borderlands games, and I've never finished a Borderlands game. That is the status of my awareness of the franchise, and I could not tell you much about the plot of any of them because they're very, very thin on that grounds.
Yeah, Borderlands has always struck me, and again, I'm much in the same boat you are, except I haven't even tried to start things. It's just I had a few friends who were kind of in it, and so whenever I would visit them, occasionally they'd be playing it. But it always struck me as game mechanics is the top priority, and then like characters and like the villains and stuff you face, that's maybe the next tier, and then story is like way down the list of things that matter in this franchise.
Yeah, characters and like sense of humor are kind of way above the story, and the story is just kind of there to give you some sort of end goal of what you're actually doing. It's not very memorable from what I've played, and even like the games, I feel like 1 was a big deal when it came out, and 2 was arguably a bigger deal, but I feel like after 2, it kind of waned, and like, you know, the pre-sequel didn't get as much discussion. By the time 3 came out, it didn't feel like. And don't get me wrong, there's still a dedicated audience playing them. It's not like when the 4th one comes out this year that it's going to bomb or anything, but by any means. But it doesn't feel like it's kind of a big deal anymore. It kind of feels like, oh, you've got a formula, you keep doing it, it's a little bit prettier each time, but it still just kind of is what it is. But anyway, the movie has been in development for a long time. I think there was extensive reshoots, it was shelved for a while, there was a lot of like holding it back, which is never a good sign, obviously. No. It usually means something's not quite right. Directed by Eli Roth. Now, this is a director that I have ranted about many a time, but only ever on Screams After Midnight, because normally he's all segregated over into the horror community. The horror genre is where he usually spreads his mediocrity. But,
I mean, obviously you loved Green Inferno. That was the top of his game.
Yeah, still to this day, the only video that we have ever put out on the channel that is over 1 million views. Nothing else has even came close, but for some reason, the Green Inferno review from Screams After Midnight is over almost at 1.1 million. I don't know why, but it is. Yeah. So here we are.
Eli Roth's looking out for you.
I don't know why, given the things I've said about him, but so yeah, curious choice for that. Now, it's not that I think a movie of Borderlands is necessarily a bad idea. It's kind of an open, you know, like story that you can basically take a few elements of the games, take the aesthetic, take how things look, and do kind of what you want with it, really story-wise. Again, I don't really know how much this has changed, how much it's added in. There's definitely a few little things that I think are different just based on what I remember, but for the most part, it doesn't really matter that much to me.
No.
But, you know, like, the buzz going into this was pretty dire. It almost became a movie I heard people were going to see because they heard it was so bad that they had to go see it. Like, that was, like, the selling point of the movie once it came out. And almost quickly, after it did come out, it was like, hey, everyone, forget the movie exists. Borderlands 4 is coming next year. We don't want to talk about the movie ever again. So, I don't know.
I imagine that there's some warehouse somewhere in Hollywood now that is full of all this tie-in promotional stuff that is just waiting to be set on fire.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I do not know. So, yeah, I mean, premise of the movie is pretty much the same as the game. There's a vault on the planet Pandora, which people want to get to. And the one main thing that sticks out to me in this is one of the characters is Tina, who I assume is supposed to be Tiny Tina, and unless she shows up late in the first game, I don't think she showed up in the games until the second game. So they're doing a little bit of a mishmash there because that character was popular, so they wanted to get her in there. But yeah. So yeah, there's a vault. Ragtag group of people get together.
Yeah.
That's it.
Every once in a while when we do a video game movie, I go in and I do some research. Hell, when we did Postal on Extra Reels, I did like the bare minimum of research of understanding what Postal's about as a game. And I just could not be asked for this one. I saw that Tiny Tina was from the second game, and that's about it. The only thing that I was expecting from my bare minimum knowledge of Borderlands was the character of Handsome Jack. I expected him to make an appearance because I know he's actually like a decent sized character, at least in the second one, and nothing. Not here at all.
I assume that's because they wanted a sequel, and Handsome Jack would be the selling point of said sequel.
Well, I was waiting for the sequel hook at the end then, where it's like, oh, wait till they get a load on me.
I don't know. Anyway, David, what did you think of Borderlands?
I have never had less to say about a movie.
That was honestly how I felt as well. I was watching it and I was just kind of like trying to stay awake, if I'm honest. Mm-hmm. And it got to the end and I come out of it and I'm like, you know what? This reminds me when I finished Electric State and I just felt kind of empty. I don't really have much to say.
Yeah. No, that was, I literally was on IMDb just looking up like random trivia to try to keep me entertained about this. And then there's that little section at the bottom that says, you may also like, and the very first thing was Electric State. And I'm like, that's not a good sign, movie.
I want to meet the person that likes this and then gets suggested you might also like Electric State, and then they watch that and go, yeah, that was also pretty good. Like I want to know the psychotic mind at play that's having that opinion.
It has to be someone who has absolutely no exposure to any good cinema.
Yes, or a child.
That's the line.
I'll accept a child. You know, I think
I'd say that, you know, if you take the age of 14 or over, then there's just some sort of like mental deficiency going on. Anything beneath that I can attribute to, yeah, you don't know any better.
Yeah, you're just a dumb kid. It's fine. Well, I like dumb shit too when I was 9. It's fine. But
I also really need to, like, I want there to be one of those 3-hour-long YouTube quote unquote documentaries where it's just someone going deep dive in to how the entire movie industry, specifically blockbusters, has been ruined by executives misunderstanding Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
Because that is exactly what this is.
It's what it wants to be. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
the executives misunderstanding it. It's them being like, oh yeah, we just throw in a joke a minute and have a baller soundtrack, right? That's all we need.
It's shamelessly what it wants to be. It's what it's desperately trying to be. But this is the case of like, well, yeah, but James Gunn's actually a pretty good writer and director who has a lot of heart in his stories. There's a lot of things to latch on to and care about, and the jokes are, and this is, I know, an odd concept, but the jokes are funny, and that's important to the humor, it turns out.
Well, hold on, back up. I don't understand what you're saying here. Also, look, I know that this may be a bit of a dated concept here, but anytime I see produced by Avi Arad in a movie, I instinctively just guard myself a little bit. Like, I don't expect it to be good anymore.
The whiplash I got in the opening titles was executive produced by Randy Pritchford, who's the guy who makes the games, because he's a bit of a character in the games industry. So that was like a weird thing to see. But the thing that really got me was both the Gearbox and 2K Studio logo at the start of this, and I'm like, what weird Twilight Zone. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the thing now. When a video game gets adapted, the game developer, and apparently in this case, the game publisher also, like, because that was the thing when it came up saying based on Borderlands, developed by Gearbox, it also said and published by 2K. I'm like, really? We have to credit like the entire chain of the game development there? I don't know, that just felt a bit weird to me.
Produced by Gearbox, distributed by 2K, sold in stores by GameStop, bought by your cousin's mom who saw it on sale. Like, the whole supply chain down the line.
Yeah, I just they really wanted that 2K logo on there.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like anything fantastic. It was literally just like a slowly moving 2K logo, and then it just stopped. Like, they didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, it is new though. Like, this fancy render is made for the movie. Like, they did like a new little thing for it. You know, that was
back when we did what was it? Legend of Chun-Li. We made fun of, they made a Capcom logo like pretty much only for that, and that was.
Because at least if you just use the Capcom logo, or in this case the 2K logo that you actually see at the start of the games, but just slap the word like movie under it, right? I'd be like, you know what? You just opened the video file, you photoshopped in the word movies, and called it a day. I'd respect that, because it would literally be the same thing as the games. But no, you went out of your way to make a movie studio logo to play at the start. I don't know. Yeah, so the other thing we have to talk about this, right? So Eli Roth's directing, and typically one of the worst things about all of his movies, and why I don't like most of his movies, not the only reason, but one of the reasons is his sense of humor falls flat for me. And that is always a problem in his horror films. This movie is supposed to, obviously it's a science fiction action movie, but it's also meant to be funny. It's meant to be a comedy. So his bad comedy is even worse when the movie is like doing it constantly. Every 15 seconds, a bad joke occurs in this, and it's even more grating than his normal movies, which have other problems as well, to be fair. But this is like, potent. It's like that one thing he does really badly just over and over again, and it just left me feeling cold and numb. So that's problem number one. if you will. Problem number 2 is the weird, erratic casting of this movie. It's like, I feel like on one hand, it's doing these weird, like, super safe, like, generic Hollywood things where Kevin Hart's in this, Jack Black's going to voice Claptrap. Yeah, these are like super, like, these are expected. I understand what they're doing with this. But then Cate Blanchett as Lilith is like such a weird, interesting choice that maybe could have been good, maybe could have been something special if, you know, like, the script was good, or she didn't look uncomfortable delivering one-liners the entire time, or and that might just be down to Eli Roth, director, to be honest. That may not be her fault. But she did not feel comfortable in this badass, like, one-liner role.
I agree with that. I don't think she felt comfortable, but I don't even think it's up to. I think it's just the role was not meant for her. There's this issue with her character may exist in the games. I don't know. I didn't look that up.
It does.
But
it does.
It does.
She's in the first game.
If it looks anything like her, fine. Maybe this is just a case of they wanted to try to keep it looking as close, and they think Cate Blanchett is a great actress. She's done great things. She can carry this. But yeah, no, writing-wise, there's nothing here. There's just absolutely nothing for this character to do for a even great actor to play off of. So I think that was, as much as she was, and also, based off of everything I've read in trivia and stuff like that, she 100% took this role because she got stir-crazy during COVID and just needed to do something. And that's kind of when this all got filmed. So, yeah, I can see that. A chain of dominoes just leading to what we ended up with here.
That's somewhat amusing. Now, Lilith is a character. She's one of the playable characters in the first game, and she also pops up as like a story character, at least in the second game. I don't remember if she's in pre-sequel or okay. Hell, I didn't play much of 3, so I mean, I don't know who shows up in that. But what's so funny though is that if you have played even just a little bit of the first game and you've played her, it actually spoils a lot of things this movie does. Because there's some reveals later on in this movie that are, I think, supposed to be a surprise, at least for the people who haven't played the game. But this movie treats it as like as a big reveal, and that's just kind of, even me, someone who never finished it and played it like 15 years ago, still sort of like side-eyed something when they tried to make me think something else, and I went, but wait a minute, in the game, this, and then of course the movie then later on reveals that, and I'm like, okay, all right, fair enough then. I
mean, I don't think I caught any of that from a video game standpoint. Obviously, I didn't play anything from the games, but I will say, just narratively, of knowing how a movie like functions, I knew they were going to try to pull out the rug for me at some point. And so when that stuff happened, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. I was like, well, clearly that's not the case, so it must be this other thing. And then, of course, it ends up being that other thing.
Yeah, and then the weird thing here is that, I mean, I guess Lilith became more important because she was more of a prominent character stuck around in games that came later. And again, I don't know how the first game ended, so maybe she was super important by the end of that. But in the first game, it kind of felt like the 4 playable characters were all just kind of equally, you know, whatever. None of them, none of the 4 felt like the main character. Whereas here, I mean, and again, it's a movie, so they kind of have to pick one and say that's the one who we're focusing on.
Yeah.
But hey, what's weird though is that one of the 4 characters from the first game isn't here, as far as I can tell, at least on the main team, because so the first game was Lilith, Roland, who's Kevin Hart's character, and then I don't know what he was called in the game. I assume it's just what the same in the movie, but the big guy, Krieg, he's the big
psycho,
the berserker type character. And then there's a sniper character in the game who has like a hawk or something, like it sort of fires out. He's just not here. That's the other character that's, I think, not in the first one, is, I want to say Moxie might not show up until the second game. Again, vague memories here. I could be wrong on that. Maybe she is in the first one as well, but I definitely remember from the second game. But, yeah.
I'm trying to get a breakdown. I see a lot of stuff that's like full franchise-wise. Roland, Lilith. There's someone apparently named Mordecai. I don't know who that one is.
That's the sniper in the first one.
That's the sniper? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, it's saying... it looks like no, sorry, I'm reading this wrong. It's again, the article I'm reading is the lore of like, and then they're just kind of trying to split it up by what game it is, but since there's now a pre-sequel and all that, it gets a little bit confusing. I I wish I liked any of these characters. I wish there was a single character in this that like I felt any sort of connection to, but even honestly, it kind of felt like an inverse of the way the studio wanted me to care. Like, we have Kevin Hart's character who is more or less the straight man in this movie, and I don't think the studio expected you to care that much about him, and I didn't. So it was left kind of neutral in that state. But then you get the characters like Lilith and Tiny Tina, where I think you were supposed to care a lot about them, and I hated them. I hated the way they were portrayed. I hated the way they were written. They are the least interesting characters, and I don't think that that's specifically this movie's fault, but I think it's that I am so tired of seeing these characters for the past decade that it's just nothing special being done here, and I'm sick of them.
I mean, that's fair. I don't see. The weird thing is that it's not even like when you play the first game, the characters have that much to them. The main thing that differentiate them is how they play. They have different abilities, right? One has turrets. That's Roland's character. He puts out turrets. I was shocked he didn't do that in the movie, to be honest.
Yeah, you're telling me that. I would have expected it at some point.
Yeah, I was shocked by that, because there's other things that kind of pop up. For example, there's a reference at one point of the shields that you get in the game, and that's just something you get constantly as a character. And in the movie, it's something that just comes up at one point near the end, is like one character has a shield.
Right.
And there's lots of like visual things, and there's lots of like the guy in the bus early on, like he's in the game. That's how you start the first game, is him like driving you on the bus, and he's like saying, Vault Hunters. They might have even used the same actor, for all I know, who did like the voice for the game, because it kind of looked and sounded kind of similar. But regardless, it's got that kind of thing where it's a very thin plot. It's very derivative of a lot of movies, like you say, the last 10, 15 years, and just uses a lot of things from the game as aesthetic. Now, it kind of does use the plot as well, but the thing is the plot of the game is so thin and generic anyway, that there's nothing special there. There's nothing that makes you go, oh, this is distinctly Borderlands, even down to the fact that the planet shares a name with another sci-fi franchise. So what you're left with is all the derivative stuff to try and make it feel more like a movie, and you get lots of Easter eggs and references to the games, and that reminds me of like the Mario animated movie, or a Ready Player One, even, which is not based on a game, but that kind of idea where it's like, hey, here's the shield from the game, here's that gun from the game, here's that vendor from the game, here's Moxie from the game, here's this thing, here's that monster. Oh, we're not going to do lots of things. You see skags constantly in the game, which are these like animals that run around in the desert. You get like one glimpse of skags in this movie because, hey, they're in the game a lot, so we have to show them briefly. So there they are. There's your shot. Right, that's it. Moving on.
Right. Yeah. No, honestly, what strikes me the most, and I think this is the most disappointing aspect, is when I think Borderlands, as someone who hasn't played it. So theoretically, the target audience that this movie would like to hit is the general public who isn't aware of Borderlands. But when I think of it, it's the visual style. It's this sort of like poppy cartoon sort of style where it's got these like thick black outlines around the characters to give it this sort of cartoonish violence feel to it.
It's cell shaded is the
yes,
the term.
Cell shaded. That's exact. So that is what I immediately think of. And I know that you can't translate that directly to a blockbuster. You need to make some concessions there. But it feels like there was no aspect of the visual style that was really kept outside of character designs, which is the bare minimum that you could really do in a situation like this. I think that the world itself feels incredibly boring and bland for something that should be much more cartoonish in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, the world that has no personality really, and which is kind of wild because it's constantly telling us, like, we literally have narration telling us how crazy a place Pandora is and how terrible it is, and it just feels so devoid of personality and life. It's really quite astonishing how little emotion this movie musters. As it's going through it, I feel nothing about the setup. I feel nothing about the villain. I feel nothing about what's supposed to be the heartwarming relationship of the tough bounty hunter and the asshole kid who is a bit of a firecracker and sticks up for herself, and we're supposed to care about them bonding, and there's just nothing there. Neither one of them feels all that particularly likable on their own. And all that traces back to the first time we meet them, right? There's just nothing there. Like, Lilith's whole introduction, where she's, like, confronted in a bar when she's, like, got a previous bounty that she's dealing with, and she just kind of turns around and starts shooting people and, like, saying one-liners, and it's supposed to be funny. You can tell this is supposed to be, isn't this hilarious, how she's just taking out these guys and not giving a shit.
They pause for laughs and everything. It is supposed to be a comedic scene.
It's very weird to feel awkward when you're sitting on your own watching a movie, but that's what that's made me feel, is that they do that. You could tell it was meant to be funny, and I'd be sitting there kind of cringing, even though I'm on my own. In theory, I shouldn't be able to feel that way on my own, but I am, and I guess in that respect, you've accomplished something, movie. So congratulations.
But is it something that they should want to accomplish? I mean, that's not really a goal.
Oh, no, of course not.
Though, to be fair, with Lilith, I didn't have as much of that. I kind of just felt pity for Cate Blanchett. I'm like,
yes.
You got pulled into this somehow. I'm very sorry. The cringe for me came with Tina. I could not, like, every line, I just see it as like, oh, yep, here's that rowdy kid character who's so much more violent than they should be. You've seen the character 1 billion times, and we'll do it 1 billion more. But this one is special because there is nothing else to it. There's barely even like a tragic backstory. It's just violent kid.
Yeah, you can't help but think about Hit Girl or something like that, which is a good example of this trope. Arguably, it wasn't even a trope when that did it, but like, just the idea that there's a heart there. There's like she cares about her father. There's a relationship. And she wants revenge later in the film, and by that point, you believe that she's got the ability to take that revenge. And there's a lot of like interesting sort of things come out. And you mentioned feeling sorry for Cate Blanchett. That was the other thing I was thinking. As soon as they announced the casting, I went, wait, that's about weird. Not because yeah, she's obviously known for more prestigious dramas and, like, you know, proper movies, forgive the term, but also because, and this is no insult to her at all, but my first thought was like, isn't she a bit old to lead a Borderlands movie? Because I would assume the leads of a Borderlands movie would be like 20 to 25. And she's obviously in her like mid-40s or whatever she is. And she's even got a line early on where she's like, I think I'm getting too old for this shit. And I'm like, I never got the impression in the game that any of the characters were at the Danny Glover age of being like, I think I'm too old for this shit. It's just a weird, interesting choice.
It's just because they wanted to, in the movie, set up, and this is pretty much immediately set up, is this faux mother-daughter thing. They wanted to do a Ripley from Aliens, pretty much, where you got Tina being this quote-unquote helpless kid, so you need someone to not be in their 20s, you need someone to be motherly age.
Yeah, I guess that's it. I guess they decided on that, and that meant casting a middle-aged actor as opposed to you know, some young person. And it's not even that I think that would be better, but it was definitely like, oh, that's kind of a weird choice, but okay.
Yeah, no. It's the same sort of feeling. Mind you, we are recording this probably about like 2-3 weeks after release. I haven't seen it, but it's the same feeling I got when they said Jack Black as Steve in the Minecraft movie. I'm like, really? That's the everyman you want to go for? That's the main character? Okay, sure, why not? But apparently it worked out for them, so kudos.
Well, it worked out for them because the young people today are into memes, and they basically just turned the whole experience of seeing that movie into a meme. Not because it's actually necessarily any good, because all the actual critiques I've heard make it sound like it's just a kind of a mess. But
again, that's when I say worked out for them, I mean financially. Yes. I have absolutely no critical opinion on that. I really hated all of it. I really can't think of like a single thing in it that I was enjoying, to the point where it starts off with like the expositional backstory for the planet, and they're like, millions of years ago, an alien race. And the moment they said that, my brain shut off. Like, I wasn't accepting it.
Do you know what's so funny about it is that, not the exact narration, but that is something from the games where at least a couple of them start with like a narrator kind of explaining Pandora. And I think what this points out to me is that all these story elements in the game are absolutely just generic fluff to prop up the game part, right? It's all about just setting up what you're doing when you're playing the game. And don't get me wrong, there's video games that actually have great stories, that actually have great writing and do interesting things with narrative and are far more in depth. But they don't all need to be that, right? And you can get away with it just being a fairly generic story that feels like it's been pulled from like 5 or 6 different sci-fi movies, because what makes it unique is the fact that we get to play it, and that's what the real meat of it is the gameplay. So when you take the story from the game, and the game's just an amalgamation of a bunch of things that's taken from movies, and then you turn that into a movie, guess what you feel when you watch just those parts of it that have been adapted into a movie? You feel like you're just seeing a regurgitation of a bunch of shit you've seen a million times. And yes, the Iridian, I think they were called, they once ruled this planet, and there's a vault with all their magical treasure or something. I don't care, but okay. Yeah.
And like, even once they try to make you care, like that, sure, you give it as an initial prologue and then you elaborate on it later, so be it. But like, there was no connection to any of it. I don't think like this movie has a misunderstanding of the source material. I think it probably does just fine with it, but it just doesn't have any teeth that I can get like attached to. This is what, you know what it is, and I'm going to 100% call this out. It's PG-13. That's the issue here. This needed to be R. Like I think this is 100% that issue.
One thing though.
Yes.
It's not the only issue. I get why you're saying this, and I agree with the sentiment, but I'm saying it's a issue, or an issue. Yes. It's not the issue. I'm just making that clear.
Correct. I don't want to put it all on that. The writing would still be poor regardless, but there is so much of this that feels so safe and so put by a committee in here rather than by a vision. And I feel it is worth pointing out that apparently there were significant reshoots after this was done that Eli Roth was not involved in. And the director of Deadpool and what was the other one he did?
Wolverine?
Pulled up here. No, Deadpool and Terminator Dark Fate. Tim Miller.
Oh, great.
Yes. He came in to do the reshoots, and they were substantial, according to reports. And that's the sort of thing where I'm like, oof, this is not good.
What's funny about that is you said Cate Blanchett just did this because she got bored during the pandemic, but by the time the reshoots were happening, that was probably over, and she's probably like, why am I still having to do work on this movie? Like, leave me alone. Like, we should be done.
I'm back on Broadway or whatever it is I do in my spare time. Leave me alone. No, it's also obvious. I wouldn't say specifically where the reshoots happen, but it's obvious that there is a lot of ADR in this movie. Oh yeah, there's a lot of times where they purposely don't show a character's mouth, but boy howdy, are they spouting exposition that's needed for the next scene.
Yeah. This is like a bold thing to say, because like there's been so many video game adaptations, and let's face it, most of them are bad, if not terrible, right? Most of them are. There's a couple of interesting, weird ones that I kind of like. It turns out the earliest ones ended up being the most interesting. Like, when I think of like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and like the live-action Mario Brothers, I'm like, those are all so much more interesting than something like this. It's insane how much more interesting those are, even regardless of how bad they may actually technically be. There's just something weird and like fascinating about them. This just feels like Hollywood slop. But no, so many video game adaptations. You know, I play video games, and sometimes a game I care about gets translated into a movie. Resident Evil, they've done it numerous times, and it's been a disaster every time. Here's the thing about Borderlands, though, that I think, you know, based on some of the things we've said here about kind of the problem with the adaptation being that the game is already just kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of movie tropes to fit the game, what they wanted to make. So now you're putting that back into a movie form. You're basically just reheating something that was already reheated several times. You're just kind of, you know, regurgitating something back out, and it's been like processed in both directions multiple times. It leads me to the conclusion that maybe, just maybe, Borderlands was never suitable to be adapted in the first place. That there was almost, unless someone came in here with a completely original story that they came up with because they really liked the characters enough that they took the time to sit down and say, no, this is what it's going to be, and they were allowed to do that, maybe that could have turned into something good that would have like been like almost a relaunch of it in some ways. But adapting what the games are, I don't think ever stood a chance of being anything particularly good or special. Better than this, maybe. Like, don't get me wrong, I think you could do better than this, but I do think at its core, it maybe just never really warranted or deserved an adaptation, because fundamentally all that's there in the game that isn't the gameplay is just stuff from other things to make the gameplay have a bit of a structure around it. That's it.
I think, and I'm not talking about a good story here, I'm talking about just a success, one way or the other, whether it's critically applauded or commercially successful. I think when it comes to video game adaptations, if it has a good story, if it's something like Last of Us, where the story is like the selling point, like you really are invested in these characters, you can adapt that and make it a critically appraised thing because the story's there, it's written, people already love it. If you have something more along the lines in a video game of like Super Mario Brothers or something like that, I think you really need to buckle down on just cater to the fans. Just throw out every reference, throw out every tiny little thing that they're going to go in their seats and go, oh, hey, look at that. I recognize that from the game. And will it be critically successful? Probably not. But at the very least, you've got that audience locked in. This is a strange, not even a strange case. They do it all the time. But this is one of those cases where they wanted to go mass market appeal, but they knew the core story wasn't there, so they applied the most basic story that they have on file, which at this point is Guardians of the Galaxy done poorly. And they just have nothing else going on there. Like you said, there's nothing they're pulling from Borderlands, because Borderlands itself is not a specific entity. It is this amalgamation of older things that has been processed through. So yeah, it was never going to be an easy task to translate this movie over, but I think through the options they could have taken, they chose the worst possible one.
If not the worst, then certainly the least interesting. Certainly the most boring option.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could see an even bigger disaster that it'd at least be interesting to talk about.
Like you're talking about doing the Resident Evil style remake, where it's like we're not even going to make a commercially successful one. We're just going to make a weird one.
I was thinking, like, what if, like, instead of having like CG for Claptrap, who's like a little robot, for those of you who don't know because you've not seen the movie or played the game, that's what Jack Black voices. What if instead of having CG for Claptrap, you just had like Danny DeVito in a cardboard box? Like, I mean, that would be terrible, but it would also be amazing.
Well, that's the Super Mario 93 aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Where it's like, instead of having, this clearly defined dragon character, instead we're going to have Dennis Hopper. It's like, why? That doesn't make any sense.
Because he's better than Bowser. That's why.
Yeah, he's not Jack Black, which seems to be the only requirement for a video game movie nowadays.
Yeah, it's so weird he was in Borderlands and then Minecraft, like, so close to get together.
And Super Mario, don't forget that. He was Bowser.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I can't wait till they announce Chris Pratt as Link for the Zelda movie and Jack Black as Ganon, I believe, is the villain.
No, Zelda. He's got to be Zelda.
He's going to be Zelda. He's going to have a wig.
He's got to be Zelda. Yep.
Play Zelda, okay. Yeah. I actually don't know what Ganon looks like, so I don't know if Jack Black's even a suitable...
Not even close, but he's just as qualified when it came down to Steve, so whatever.
Sure. Yeah, okay. That's fair.
Yep.
Yeah, so needless to say, don't like it very much. Other names that are in there, Jamie Lee Curtis is in there in a fairly big supporting role. Gina Gershon plays Moxie, which, it's been a while since I've seen her in something. Well, in terms of like new stuff, obviously we did Bound on Collector's Cut just last year, which was one of her kind of more prominent roles, actually. So it's kind of interesting to see that. Other than that, though, there wasn't anyone sticking out to me that I either knew or...
The guy who plays Krieg is named Edgar Ramirez, and I'm looking through his thing, and he does seem to be a little bit more of a... Is it not? Is that not
that's Atlas. That's the
Atlas.
villain. Yeah.
Yoinks, my bad. Clicked on the wrong guy there. So even then, Atlas, the villain, I don't recognize him from pretty much anything either. Nothing was jumping out at me. And Krieg, even less so. Apparently he was in the Creed movies.
Oh, he looks like he could be a villain boxer. He's got that look to him. I can see that. I bet that's what he is. I bet he's a boxer in one of them.
I don't want to spoil. The name is very obvious as to who he is, so I don't want to spoil it. But yes, absolutely.
Oh, there's only one person it could be then. I'm assuming his last name is Drago.
What? No. I don't know what you're talking about. It's Balboa.
I don't think it's a spoiler to say that there's a Drago character in the second one.
I don't know. Sometimes you yell at me for things I don't consider spoilers, so I just play it safe.
Yeah, but that movie was sold on, hey, Ivan Drago is back and his son's going to fight Creed.
Was it?
Yeah, that was the entire trailer.
That's fair. Fair enough. I just never saw the trailer then.
Dear. All right, spoilers for Borderlands, because who gives a shit?
Sure. Except you know the whole story already. Like, as soon as we start talking, as soon as we said there's an alien planet with a vault, you automatically know everything that's going to happen in this movie.
Do you know what's so weird about it, though, is that they even undercook the parts that are supposed to feel like it becomes the big deal. Because the motivation for most of the characters to go to the vault, not Lilith, she's just there to find the girl at first, and she kind of gets lumped with them. But the motivation is that they want to go open the vault because they want to get to it before Atlas, who's Tiny Tina's father, because he's evil and he'll use whatever's in there to do lots of bad things, so we have to get to it first. And I'm like, okay, alright, you're trying to stop this, like, evil businessman / dictator from getting this unlimited power, blah 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 blah. And the parts of this is that there's a couple of MacGuffins, which are keys, but there's also a child of the Iridian who has blood of the ancient aliens in them that is necessary to open the vault. And but seemingly Tiny Tina was cloned in a lab from blood that was found on one of the keys. So she's basically been made from Iridian blood, which is actually something that a horror movie did last year in relation to Jesus Christ, which I won't spoil what movie, but it made me think of that.
What was the God, there was some writer that we've mentioned a couple times on here who always does a thing with special blood.
Oh, it's Arcee and Kurtzman, that team.
That's it. Yeah. I was expecting that to pop up at some point here, where it's like, oh, I got the special blood in me, because she does. Once they bring up the special blood at the first point where she says, like, I was cloned with special blood, she doesn't let you forget it for like a half a scene. Every single time she pops up, she's like, it's okay, I'm special, and then she just keeps going.
I'm the bestest. I'm the queen of the universe, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the thing I'm getting at though is that towards the end of the movie, when we're kind of ramping up and it's kind of race to get to the vault, and oh no, the villain might get his hands on the vault, I feel like, could we at least, I don't know, establish what this guy is doing to the universe that makes it so dangerous? Like, all we really get is that he's kind of a dick to his somewhat daughter. Like, give us an example of him being awful. Give us an example of, like, him deciding on a policy that's, like, going to kill millions of poor people or something. I don't know. Anything.
Yeah, no. It's because they do the weird thing where it's like the universe, specifically this planet, is already super crap. So anything that he's doing just feels like a byproduct of, well, he's on this planet, so that seems normal. So, like, they show all these, like, mining towns and stuff like that, and, like, these horrible slums that people are living in. And I think the implication is supposed to be it's because of these guys, because they're the capitalists in charge of things, more or less. But it just feels like it's a byproduct of the planet and not this guy. So it's a horribly written setting for him at the very least.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like they, again, in a better script, I'd expect them to really sell me on, like, how bad it is, what the stakes are of him getting this. Instead, we're just told he is really bad. So
yeah, I would also be sold on, tell me anything about these aliens, of, like, I don't even care if they're true or not. Give me legends. Give me what people expect to find in this vault. Instead, everyone's just like, oh no, they had, like, great power and whatnot. Meaning what? What are we getting blueprints out of this? Is it just magical space laser as I'm expecting it to be? What are we doing here with this vault?
And weirdly, we don't even get an answer. We don't even get to see what the stuff in the vault can be used for. It doesn't even look recognizable to us. It's just a bunch of shapes floating around, and someone says it's like, oh, this is so much power. This is more than I could have imagined. And I'm like, well, I can't even understand what we're looking at, and I'm seeing it.
Bro, this is just the opening loading screen from the PS2 with all the blue floating cube. That's all it is. That's all you just went into that.
Oh dear. And of course, the big reveal. So here, I want to talk about Lilith's twist, if you want to call it that,
yes.
right?
All right.
So,
sure.
So, whole movie, Tiny Tina, I'm special, I'm special. I was bred in a lab with clone blood of an elder so that I could be the special chosen one who can open the vault. I'm special. Here's a teddy bear with a bomb in it. We'll talk about that more later.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, whatever. And I like, Tiny Tina's not in the first game, so I was like, I guess they've changed something here. I don't care. The problem, though, is when they started having Lilith, like, sort of say, oh, I recognize this droid of someone with these flame wings, and my mind immediately went, wait a minute. I feel like I have a vague memory of this visual with her in the game. And then, particularly when we're getting towards the end of Act 2, and they teleport out of a location, and they're all like, oh my god, Tina, did you just do that? And she's like, yeah, I think I did. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure Lilith does that constantly in the games. What are you doing? And I'm like, this is meant to be a twist, isn't it? You want us to think it's Tina, but then we're going to have the big revelation that Lilith is special, that her mother knew she was special, and she was the natural, like, descendant of the elder aliens or whatever. And she's going to have these big flame wings, and she's going to teleport, and what exactly is the extent of her power? Who knows? The movie doesn't even bother to try and define it.
She has the exact same power set as Captain Marvel, which is whatever the hell you need it to be.
Joe is so frustrating, though, is that not only is that a problem in terms of understanding what she can do, but it also means that in the third act, when you try and make it look like, oh, she's still going to lose and she's in jeopardy, I'm like, I have no idea if her powers, like, you know, is it plausible that she's defeated right now? Because it feels like she's super powerful. Like, it's so poorly defined that you can't even latch on to the potential drama of, oh, they might lose here, because I just don't understand if they are. The movie's just acting as if they're going to, but there's nothing that's actually set up what her weaknesses are, or if she has a limited amount of, like, you know, maybe she has to recharge after she's used some blasts and shields and whatever, you know, whatever it may be. I don't know. But
I mean, what they set up is that her power is, like, linked to this ancient race or the planet itself, because she is the guardian of the planet or whatever. At minimum, the very first things we see is she's able to basically imbue all of the other characters with a super shield. So invulnerability, you would think, would be like the bare necessity here. But then she's immediately hit by just like normal ass gunfire. So there's nothing. There's nothing that remains consistent amongst her character outside of she can zoom around and has energy blasts. That's it.
Yeah, and she gets knocked down, but then as soon as these big cannons fire lasers at her, she sort of forms a shield again, so we get the big resisting the energy beam scene, and that's all it is. And I don't know.
It's so weird that in those final moments, I thought they were doing a thing of, you know, this is all technology, this is all like space stuff, and then she represents the planet, aka nature, and I thought like, oh, okay, they're doing a nature versus technology thing. David, and then I thought through the rest of the movie, and I'm like, no, they weren't.
Excuse me, David, it's not nature, it's Awa.
Mm-hmm. Awa. I'm assuming that's from the good Pandora.
That's from the good Pandora. Awa heard you.
Okay. Gotcha. Sorry, I don't have that as memorized as you do.
I don't know if I memorized much of it, but I remember Awa. Awa's the energy, the spirit of the forest or the planet that, you know, will guide all living creatures on Pandora to keep it going and fight the evil
And
imperialists.
instead of a giant tree, this one is a giant phoenix flame bird. That's the iconography they decided to go with.
Yeah, which is actually quite funny because the movie literally ends in her doing like a big firework thing by gonna, you know, flying into the sky and making the big flame bird. And I went, oh, so she is just Jean Grey. She's just a phoenix. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Next movie, she's gonna snap, kill everybody, Dark Phoenix, and then we'll continue on from there.
Oh dear.
You know, I really want to point out, like, yes, that is the ending of the movie. That is the final thing to happen. But the hour and 20 minutes leading up to that is no more interesting.
No.
It's no more of anything happening. Like, we kind of just said the most interesting part of the movie by far.
It's like, because it goes through the beach, right? So you get the initial breakout scene on the ship where Roland has been sent to get Tina back. But he actually and I'm actually a little unclear if he'd already decided he was going to like break her away and not let her go back to her dad, or if he just sort of made that choice during the scene. Maybe I was just sort of like so bored and half asleep that I wasn't paying enough attention. But they end up teaming up with Krieg, who's this big ex-psycho who wears the the Borderlands mask that everyone always has for the cosplays and whatnot. And it's like, okay, help me get her out of here. And then it goes to another planet, maybe Earth, I can't remember. And Lilith is got a bounty that she's carrying around, and she's disgruntled. She's doing the I'm too old for this shit routine. Yeah.
This is also the first point that I noticed the ADR, because as they're dragging this guy through the streets, it's all the humorous lines, all the things of them doing witty banter, all ADR'd. And I was like, okay, so this was added in well after the fact of trying to keep things light instead of introducing her as an actual badass. You wanted another Deadpool instead. Understood.
Yeah, and she, gets confronted by these thugs, but then when she shoots the thugs, which is supposed to be funny, the villain Atlas hires her, because he sort of like has like a little hologram that pops up in front of the guy's face to sort of like use him as a conduit to talk to her, and hires her to go find the girl on Pandora, and pays her a ludicrous amount of money to do so because she doesn't want to go back there. But then she sees the money and she's like, oh yeah, sure, okay, I guess you do have enough. Again, it's supposed to be funny because she's like, I'll never step foot in that shithole again. You don't have enough money for that. Ding. Oh, maybe you do have enough money for that. Great. Yeah, funny, hilarious.
I laughed so hard that I actually stopped laughing, traveled back in time, and stopped myself from ever laughing to begin with.
So here's the thing. They do a something that felt that they were setting something up here. Not a big thing necessarily, right? Just a joke, effectively. But they did a whole thing where they mimic the start of the first game where she gets to Pandora and she gets on the bus, and it's the guy from the game who's like, welcome, Vault Hunter, blah, blah, blah. And she keeps saying, I'm not a Vault Hunter, right? I'm not here for that. And she gets frustrated that all the videos playing on the bus are all about vault hunting and like what, and it's all exposition for the audience, of course, so we understand what the MacGuffins are, yada, yada, yada. And she eventually gets off the bus and all that. And that's such a thing. She's like, I'm not a Vault Hunter. I'm not a Vault Hunter. And then people even say to her later, oh, you're just a filthy Vault Hunter. And it's like, I'm not a filthy Vault Hunter. I'm a bounty hunter. Right? It becomes this running thing. And of course, the joke's supposed to be when the guy from the bus sees her in the main town sanctuary later on in the movie, somewhere in the middle, and he says, hey, there's the one who's not Vault Hunting. What are you doing here? And Tina turns around and says, oh, she's Vault Hunting. Right? I'm like, I think that was supposed to be the payoff. Like, I feel like the funnier and more meaningful payoff to all that setup would be a moment where Lilith actually says that she is vault hunting, but actually means it now. That would be the payoff where, it's almost like a joke, like cover up, like a joke layer on top of the classic. I'm not this. I'm refusing to answer the call. I'm not a hero. I'm not a hero. And then you get to the start of the third act. I'm going to be a hero. I'm going to try to be a hero. Arc. Now I know it seems weird that I'm applying that to this silly joke, but it felt like it could have been that, where I was expecting a moment later on, and I'm not saying this would have made the movie all work or anything, but that's what I thought they were going to do with it. I thought it was going to be a case of, because even when she teams up with the other characters, she's just kind of doing it because we get into that fight with those like soldiers that are chasing you, now I'm going to be lumped in with you and your dad's going to want to kill me, so I guess I'm stuck with you. It's not like she's die hard for the cause now. It's not like she wants to go find the vault. It's not like she believes in what they're doing. She thinks it's a bunch of bullshit. So I still thought, she's going to keep just going along for the ride, pretending it's a bunch of bullshit, and then at some point when she actually gets convinced and believes in it, she'll finally say, I'm a vault hunter, or something to that effect.
Yeah. Just anything to pay it off. Like they set it up so early and so thick that it does need to be the main payoff, more or less. Instead, they have her turn into the fire goddess or whatever of this planet, and that didn't get set up until like halfway into the movie. That was a much later thing, and it didn't feel nearly as powerful of a payoff because of it. And like you said, we get the payoff to this one less than halfway through, or like at the halfway point. It feels like a complete dud misfire that just happened too early.
And don't get me wrong, I do not want this movie to be any longer, but it does feel like it rushes through a lot of things in this edit, and like I'm thankful it is only 100 minutes, less without the credits.
Oh, God. I was so happy to see that when I loaded this up. I was like, under 2 hours by a significant margin. Thank you.
Oh yeah, because there was a chance. There was a chance I'd load this movie up and it'd be like 2 hours 25 minutes. There was always a chance it was going to be that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's the merciful part of this. But you can feel that like they're rushing through a lot of these beats where when it gets to a point where we're supposed to believe the team is bonded or Lilith and Tiny Tina have bonded, and I'm just sitting there going, you have not earned this. You have not earned this emotional moment where they're looking at each other thinking... Like, there's a moment towards the end of Act 2 where Roland has to stay behind to save the others, and it seems like it might be certain death. It isn't, but they play this moment, and like Tina's up at the bars of the elevator saying, no, Roland, you can't. Don't leave us. And he's like, I'll meet you at the vault. I promise. And he stays back to take on the horde of psychopaths by himself. And I was shocked that we just cut back to him like 2 scenes later, crawling out from the dead bodies, being like, "Yep, I guess I'm all right. I'll go meet up with the rest of them." And I'm like, why not just save it and have it be a big moment when he pops in later? It's just...
Again, Pete, you need to understand this, and I think this is mainly coming from Tim Miller more than Eli Roth, but we live in a post-ironic society. Having an attachment to a character is no longer allowed. Like, you need everything to be this level of distance. You need to be at arm's length from any emotional attachment, because if you have emotional attachment, that shows you care, and that's stupid. That's where we're at. And this entire movie does that the whole way through. Like, oh, you were expecting Roland to be dead? Well, we're just going to undercut that emotional thing by showing him crawling out from these bodies.
This is why 11-year-olds probably love this. I mean, the dozen of them that saw it, of course, because it bombed. But like those 11-year-olds
don't have disposable income.
Certainly not in this economy.
No.
No, I feel like those, just things like that. It's one of the things. It's funny we keep comparing it. Or not comparing it. I wouldn't say we've compared it to Avatar because they're very different. But you know, we've brought up Avatar a few times because of the same planet name, right? And the joke of that. One of the things I said after I saw Way of Water when I reviewed that back at the end of 2022, something that I realized watching that is one of the reasons why I really like the first Avatar even, but especially Way of Water, like after the decade we just had of movies, is I said, it's just so earnest. Like it commits to its story, it takes itself seriously, and not in like a super, oh, we're grim and gritty, dark and serious the whole time, but it takes itself seriously and that it never devalues the story it's telling. We're telling a story that's got emotional characters that care about each other, and we're committed to actually making that feel something. And this is everything that I hate about modern Hollywood. It's, no, you'll never guess how we got here. How did that just happen? Whoa!
This is 100 minutes of, that just happened.
It is. It's 100 minutes of that. It's awful. It's terrible. Yep. Oh, God. Anyway, so just to speed through some of the other things that happen. After they all meet up initially, Tina pretends to be nice, but she's actually trying to like give an explosive teddy bear to Lilith. That's the whole thing that plays out. The army that works for the bad guy, Atlas, shows up, right? And they're for her, and because Tina throws an explosive, all shit breaks loose. Roland shows up at this point in a car. Krager's there as well, or Craig, not Krager. And they get in a vehicle and they basically have a chase scene away from the army, and they do get away from them. And that leads straight in to our funny, wacky monster piss scene where they're all in the car, right? And we see a sign as they drive into this area. Oh, beware! I can't remember the monster's like name, but like something like
whatever.
Piss
dragon, whatever.
And like, you know, the window gets open, they all say no, and it all spurts into the car, and it's like, oh, and this was in the trailer. I remembered this from the trailer. Was Tiny Tina going, oh, it's in my mouth.
I remember that moment from the trailer because that's where I dismissed the movie. That's where I'm like, oh, that's the humor we're going with. Okay, bye, I'm done.
Yep, that was that absolutely. And then we go to Sanctuary, and I couldn't believe just how quickly we were firing through some of the beats of this set of tropes. You know, we're going through this and this, and I remember checking the time. Once they were at Sanctuary, and particularly I think once they were talking to Jamie Lee Curtis, and there was a point where I went, oh, we're almost an hour into this, and I feel like I don't know, it feels like there's not that much time left technically to do everything that the movie would need to do to actually have a meaningful Act 3.
Yeah. It's because we don't set up what this movie needs to do until well into Act 2. And like the MacGuffins, the whole thing with the keys and all that, those only happen once Jamie Lee Curtis is around, and it is significantly later. Now there's mentions of it before then. There's tiny little like tidbits, but the actual like call to action, the moment where they say we have to go do this, that doesn't happen until Jamie Lee Curtis gets brought in, and that's at least 45 minutes. So yeah, no, it's such a poorly paced movie, because I had that same thought as you as I was checking the time of like, you're not going to be able to finish it. There's not enough time. You can't get to the point you need to. And lo and behold, by the time that we get to, I would say, the end of Act 2, it felt like they were just sprinting to finish these last scenes, just to get through what they needed to.
Yeah, when we got to the end of Act 2, which is kind of after Roland stays back, because they're basically going through all these caves, trying to get to like the second key, which they get, but there's these like super psychos called Bloodlusts? No. Bloodshots. Bloodshots.
Bloodshot sounds right, yeah.
And they attack them, so we get the action scene where it's just a bunch of noise. There's a lot of Cate Blanchett dual wielding pistols, or she's got one pistol and she's got like a sort of shotgun that she's spinning like Terminator 2 to try and look cool, and like she's got her arms stretched out firing these guns, all while of course your popular songs playing, your Ace of Spades, yes, is blaring through the speakers here at this point, and it just feels so painfully generic. But after they get out of this, and it's kind of the end of Act 2 around here, like, it genuinely only had, like, maybe 30 minutes on the clock, but obviously this is a modern blockbuster, so there's, like, at least 8 minutes of credits, so I'm like, wait, you've got, like, 22 minutes left movie, and I feel like, what are we doing here? And by the time we actually get to, Cate Blanchett's having an emotional flashbacks of the day her mother, like, the last time she saw her mother, and her mother's waving goodbye and saying, blah, blah, and... So, yeah, we never even mentioned this. So, Claptrap, which, the robot, which...
I was going to bring it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cate Blanchett just basically discovers this robot when she arrives on the planet, right? She almost shoots him a bunch of times. She tells him to piss off, and he's like, no, whoever, like, programmed me made me come wake up whenever you came back, so I'm here to find you. You're important. I have to help you. And...
He doesn't know why. He has nothing about the backstory. Yes. He just knows that when the time is right, I will deliver the extra special MacGuffin.
And before we get to that, actually, I suspect I know the answer, but Claptrap's humor has, because all he really does is crack jokes, basically. He's got a bit of an attitude where he tells all she's an awful human being and gets sarcastic about, I hope nothing bad happens to you, et al. How did you feel about all of that?
All right, so Claptrap's a bit of a weird case, because I think, and this is just me not having played the games, I think this may be the closest they actually get to the character in the games being represented, like, faithfully.
Oh, that's fair.
So
that is fair. But I will say this. A lot of the audience think he is the worst, most annoying part of the games.
And I think that also got represented very faithfully. I don't like it. I mean, there's an occasional wayward joke that I think actually is okay, but there is one point after they finish fighting all the psychos, or actually it's just before the psychos, where he literally just starts shitting bullets, and it's like an extended explosive diarrhea scene right out of Dumb and Dumber, and I just like, who put this in the script? Who greenlit this? Who said that, like, yep, this is the level of humor we're going for? And everyone's like chuckling at it, saying like, oh, Claptrap, you rowdy figure. Yeah, I was so done with the movie by that point, and none of his other humor worked out either. Like I said, a wayward joke got a little bit of like an exhale out of me, but I don't think it got a laugh.
So yeah, his ultimate purpose, though, is once Cate Blanchett's had the realization of, I grew up seeing this Firebird thing and I'm remembering my past. Because when they get out of this cave system, when they come up through the elevator, would you believe they happen to just be in the town that she grew up in as a child? That they're there. They're right there.
Yeah.
So all these memories get triggered. She's having all these little flashbacks. And that's when we get R2-D2 giving the hologram message to say, hey, daughter of mine, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope. You can save the planet.
Like, okay, so at that point in the movie, they had her teleporting without realizing it, and she's being drawn to a key that should have taken like days to find. She's drawn to it and finds it immediately. And that's our quote unquote hints to the audience that she's actually the special one here. I could not be less interested. Like, I mean that literally. I'm not saying that as an exaggeration of like, oh, they didn't do it well. No, I had negative interest in this plot line because it is so poorly done. Not from a viewpoint of like, oh, they should have set it up better or something like that. But I have no attachment to the planet, this character, why she doesn't feel like she wants to come back. Any of this stuff just did not land for me whatsoever. So when they have this reveal and say, actually, you're the special one who can open the portal, I'm like, what? The hero who's resisted the call this entire time, it turns out, is the only one who can do it? Jeez.
Or going back to what we were saying earlier, or even like, you know, what the threat of the villain is, so why we need a hero even, is still poorly defined. So there is zero reason to give a single solitary shit why she's the special one.
Yeah, let me ask you this. She doesn't get involved. Let's say that. Let's say she does hop on a ship, go off planet. Does this movie provide you any way for the villain to eventually make it in?
No, he needs her.
Yeah, she's the only one who's capable of doing it. We've seen that the best attempt, which would have been Tina, is an abject failure. So he is absolutely not capable of doing it. So why the hell should she be sticking around?
Because she's worried that her friend group here are all going to get shot. That's a bit.
Well, yeah, once everything's set up with the fact that the friends and all that, clearly that's the only reason she has to come back. But like, at a certain point, she stops and opens the vault up. And I'm like, bro, you've already unlocked God mode. You're flying around and all that stuff. There's no reason to do this except for the script says you have to.
It's that wishy-washy thing of like, again, like, should she feel like she's under threat right now? It's kind of hard to tell. It feels like she's too powerful to bother feeling threatened. But yeah, and once she does go into the vault with Tina and the bad guy, which is after a bit of a fight, of course, the laser beams coming down, the others like, you know, getting shot at and shooting back, and they do nothing. Like Roland and Krieg do nothing interesting in the final fight. Not that any of them do really, but like they especially get nothing, because at least Lilith and Tina have like the final moments with the villain and all that. But yeah, they basically just leave him trapped in there, and some big tentacle monster like comes out of the darkness and like pulls him away as they leave. And then the movie just very quickly ends with them celebrating on a balcony, watching fireworks, and that's it.
Again, what are they celebrating? Are they celebrating that the vault's been found? Because they say that everyone on this planet's looking for the vault. Why would they be celebrating if they all lost the chance at treasure? If instead they're celebrating that Evil Man is dead, they do understand that this is a company, right? And he's just going to have a replacement. It's not like the company's going to give up their claim on this planet. None of this makes sense.
It, again, poorly defined. Constantly across the board. It's just doing the beats that it assumes that the movie should have without actually doing the groundwork to make any of it make sense. It's like, it's just assuming, hey, this has fixed everything, but there's nothing to actually suggest what it's fixed outside of Bad Man is gone.
Yeah, exactly. We defeated the capitalist. Great. Congratulations. You know, the thing about the capitalist system is it keeps self-perpetuating more of them. Show me how you fix this. And maybe they're going with the idea of like, oh, Cate Blanchett is now going to be a protector of this planet. Maybe that's the vibe they're going for. Yeah. But that just feels completely wrong. Because again, she has a connection to her friends. That's what's been established here. The planet can go piss off. Like, it's not important.
Yeah, maybe if they got across the idea that Cate Blanchett, like, part of her arc was realizing that she had to kind of accept this was her home and, like, that she had to stick up for it or something. Like, it never feels like she has that kind of, like, turn or realization, you know? Like, she hates the planet, she doesn't want to go back, and it doesn't really feel like she's changed her mind by the end. She's just, you know, doing her thing. So, I don't know. Yeah.
No,
lot of shite. Let's face it. It's a pretty bad movie, which, to be honest, like, I feel like often we'll go through a bit more detail, like scene by scene, but I really do feel that this movie was giving me nothing worth talking about for large stretches. Like, really nothing meaningful. Outside of maybe noting down, if I wanted to, some of the really bad jokes so I could regurgitate them, I don't really know what else we could possibly do.
No, everything... I was told at the beginning here, I was talking to my fiance, and it was just like, hey, how long do you think you're going to be? And she assumed, based off how long we usually go, about 2 hours. And all I could say is, there's no way. There is no way we're going to be talking about this movie for 2 hours, because there's nothing to it. Some movies, at the very least, like you said, you can get pissed off about. Like, they can be that bad. But this is just the most bland corporate trash where it's just nothing for an hour and 40 minutes, except for, yeah, that just happened.
It exists. That is it. That is the extent of it.
I am shocked that after they had to go through the reshoots and all that they didn't try to sell this off to some streaming company. I'm shocked it got a theater release.
Besides, we might get to 2 hours yet. I mean, I don't know. Your homework movie might be really in depth.
Yeah. Let's just spend 45 minutes talking about that. It's much more interesting, I guarantee you.
All right. As bad as this question is, David, what was your scene of the movie?
The 8-minute ending credits where I didn't have to care. Now, if I'm actually picking something, there is a very, very brief segment of the bloodshot fight where everything is like pitch black and you just see them like lurking around. You like just like, and they come out like almost horror movie-esque. That was the only promise I had in my mind of, oh, this is what it could have been like if it was rated R. Like, it could have actually been an action movie with some thrills to it instead of the most bland piece of trash I've seen this year. I think that's what I'm going to pick, but it is, I cannot overstate this, 15 seconds of this movie.
That said, though, the action does need better direction. I mean, we didn't really mention it, but like all the action scenes, I think, are pretty just basic, and they just don't do anything to get you into them. Also,
we didn't even mention her as a character, but Jamie Lee Curtis, as I believe it's Tannis.
Yes,
it's a choice. Make a different one.
What, the casting of her, or
whatever she was doing with that character,
all right,
and like writing wise and everything like that? I got nothing out of her character. It almost felt like she was supposed to be like a secondary antagonist of like, oh, she's forcing Tina to go through this, despite the fact that apparently if she's the key, it might end up killing her, which also turns out to be false, as we find out later. No, she just, as soon as Tina steps on, it's just like, oh, by the way, this might kill you. You sure you want to go through with it? And she's like, yeah, I'm special. I'm the special one.
I mean, yeah, she did admit it before she tried it, so Tina did have the agency to decide that or not. Yeah. So it does almost feel like that was meant to go a different way and maybe reshoots or something, or just massive scenes were cut out that did more with it, or I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't even know what to pick. I mean, I almost just want to say when we got to the balcony scene at the end, because I knew I was like almost done. I was like, oh, we've got like a minute left before the credits roll. This is great. I would have agreed if it didn't feel like the balcony scene was like the worst part of the movie, because it's trying to say like, look at how far we've come, and I just want to shout, screw you, you didn't do shit. It reminded me a little bit of the end of Fan Four Stick, where they're like, what do we call ourselves? I don't know, but this is absolutely fantastic. Wait a minute, what did you say? Yeah. Guys, I've got it. Cut to black. Cate Blanchett is actually the Human Torch in this, so... Yeah, and Krieg's the Thing. Tiny Tina is Mr. Fantastic. All right. Yeah. And Roland, by default, then, is Invisible Woman. I think it suits them perfectly. Call casting for the sequel movie for Marvel's next Fantastic Four. Yeah, Pedro Pascal doesn't want to come back for a sequel. He's busy. He's got other things to do. Put in the actress who played Tiny Tina. Perfect. Nobody will riot. So are you saying the balcony? Is that actually your pick? I don't have anything else to go with. Like, nothing in this movie elicits any feeling of response. So it's all I've got. That's fine. I don't know. MVP of the movie.
I don't have an answer for you.
I don't
I wish I did. I'm gonna say the accountant for Avi Arad, who manages to stay extra overtime hours now to figure out how to turn this into a profit for him somehow.
I'm going to say Randy Pritchard just because I think it's funny. So Randy Pritchard, he
the producer.
Yes, the creator of the games, who is always looks a bit sweaty whenever he does an interview or he's on stage talking about stuff. Yeah, I'm going to go with him.
All right. Fair enough.
All right, let's do these categories quickly. Visuals.
Can I just say a really long 0 and we just keep that for all the categories? Visuals, I mean, something that we have come across in recent movies we've been doing is compositing issues. I think this does well in compositing for the most part. There's a few sequences that are still a little bit weird, specifically when she goes Captain Marvel at the end. It's not interesting visually. It's poorly paced and edited. I really don't have anything good to say, so I think I'll probably settle at like 3.
Yeah, 3, 4, something in that range is where I'm feeling. It's because, like you say, it doesn't look terrible from a compositing perspective, but I don't think the cinematography is that inspired. I do think it's overly edited at times. Like the action, especially, is far too choppy to enjoy. And it's going for a lot of really kind of generic, like cool, badass moments, which are fine when you earn them and they work, but when you're just sort of immediately trying to do them, it comes off as cheap and hokey. So I think I will agree with the 3. Yes. Okay. Sound. The Ace of Spades. The Ace of Spades.
They had a few. Like I said, Guardians. They had a few songs on here that could sell the soundtrack. I'm not saying that it was a great selection. There was, I think the opening song for Lilith was some pop song that I've heard like a billion times, and I thought it was the least inspired choice I've ever heard. But yeah, beyond that, it's a lot of ADR. It's a lot of very obvious ADR. Part of that's in with the visuals because you can tell that nobody's speaking when it happens, but that's part of the sound as well. So I think I'm going to say that's a 4.
Yeah, I'll probably go with a 5 and just say it's standard, because it's like from a technical quality, perfectly fine. Like there's nothing egregious. Like you say though, the ADR is pretty noticeable at times. Maybe not so much from a sound perspective itself, but you can tell that they're adding sounds in a very less than stealthy way. The less than seamless is maybe a better word. Yeah. I do think the soundtrack is very just kind of trite at this point, and we've done this. It's just trying to follow some trends of having a bunch of hit songs, and feels kind of undercooked as a result. That said, though, I would have popped and laughed really hard if at some point Journey started playing, just because it was also an Electric State, and that would be like a funny thing to look out for now in these really bland movies, as they all use Don't Stop Believing at some point.
Yeah, I would. Anytime it would dip in that. I mean, Ace of Spades is kind of that same era, give or take, but yeah, it's not the same. I'm looking to see if there's any. Oh, that was the other one that pissed me off. They played like the first 15 seconds of Supermassive Black Hole by Muse, which I like Muse. I like them as a band. That song, not so much, though, because all I can see in my head is the baseball scene from Twilight. Yeah, it's kind of ruined it for me.
I didn't recognize it, and I certainly didn't remember anything from that Twilight scene, music-wise. Yeah, so I can't say I feel much there. Acting.
Nobody delivers a performance worth noting. I think that there are a few people in this who are having fun with it. I think Cate Blanchett and probably Jamie Lee Curtis, as well as the actress for Tiny Tina, I think that they're having fun with it and realize that they're probably not in an A-tier movie, but I also don't think that means it's a good performance. I think it just means that they weren't trying to give their A game. So, I mean, I can't say anything fantastic about it, but I also don't think anybody was like awful compared to what was written. That's the key here, is everybody was awful if you say, oh, they're characters, because the writing was garbage the whole way through. But
that's why, especially in a case like this, I would be hesitant to say, oh, they just give terrible performances, because a lot of that isn't how they're being directed. The directing is what makes them do things a certain way, because the director's saying, hey, do it like this because it'll work with this humor that's going to bounce off this, and they will direct the performance. I mean, other than the visuals, the acting is one of the main things that's being dictated by a director. So while, don't get me wrong, there's definitely cases where an actor's just giving a terrible performance. I think when you've got something like this, and you know a lot of them, not all of them, admittedly, but you know a lot of them are good actors and have been in many good things and can do a great job, especially Cate Blanchett in this lead role, where the second she starts throwing out a one-liner early on, it feels off, it feels wrong, and it's not because she's a bad actor. Maybe she's miscast, that's obviously a part of it, but it's less because, oh, she wasn't giving it her all, and maybe more a combination of miscast, direction, bad script, all these things. And these are all factors here. I'm not saying that you should rate this, like, what I guess what I'm saying here is rating the acting here is not about rating the actors' performances on its own. It's about what the quality of those performances are as a whole by the end, regardless of the reason why they're bad or good.
Yeah.
In this case, bad, but often could be good. Yeah.
Last week we did Revenge of the Sith. We like Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson's a fine actor. He was not in that movie.
Absolutely.
I think that's exactly the briefcase here, where it's an issue of all of these things going in can turn good actors into bad actors. Mind you, I wouldn't say I'm really a fan of Kevin Hart to begin with. And
neither am I, to be fair.
If I'm being honest, I think pretty much the past 2 decades of Jamie Lee Curtis have not been great. The Bear being one of the very few exceptions. So
she's been in a couple things here or there. She's in Scream Queens. She was in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, but even then, I thought her performance in that was like a little weird. I feel like that worked in spite of her rather than because of her.
Didn't she get nominated for like supporting actor for that?
Maybe she did, but I don't think she would have deserved it.
Anyway, that's fair.
No.
You can have that opinion. I wouldn't rate off her last 2 decades of performances, I guess is what I'm saying.
Fair enough. But no, I'm going to say, with everything into account, I'm going to say acting is 4.5. I can't put it on the good side of neutral, but it isn't the worst part of this movie by far.
Straight 4. I don't need to elaborate. Straight 4. Story/script.
Garbage.
I'll give you a sound effect just as you talk here.
Yeah. All right. Strangely enough, Discord is muting that for me. I can't hear any of what you're doing. Explosion.
It'll be in the episode. Don't worry. My audio picked it up.
Cool. Good. Yeah, no, I hate it. I hate every aspect of this. I don't even think this is an issue of they needed another draft. I think this is way too much by committee, by the studio notes, and just doing those things over and over again.
This script needs to be burned, and you have to start from scratch and make a compelling story, give the characters a compelling arc, give them something to care about and do. This is a burn it down and start again. This is not a redraft of the current material.
Yep. So overall, I don't know. I'm not even looking at the score sheet for comparisons here. I'm going by gut. I'm thinking this is 0.5. Not even at the 1. 0.5.
Yeah, I was debating between a 1 or a 2 in my head. That was kind of what I was thinking there. But there's really nothing positive I can say about it. So, I'll go for a 1. I'll say it's a 1 out of 10 on script/story. It really is just a complete dumpster fire as far as that's concerned. And then production value is kind of a weird one, where this is probably going to be the highest category it gets.
Yeah. Okay, they did sink money into it. From what you're telling me, they had the monsters and creatures and stuff appearing occasionally, very infrequently, but at least that was there. The psychos from the art that I've seen did look like the psychos from the game, so that's they put in effort to at least have the facade of it, to have the little prop standees as the audience enters before they recognize, oh wait, everything else about it sucks. Do you know the woman who runs the bar? You said her name a few times, like
Moxie
or something like that. Moxie. Is she close to in game? Because she seemed like the one that, like, they were kind of hanging on a bit more for the sake of fans. That's how that struck me.
Yeah. Again, kind of similar to Cate Blanchett. I don't think in the game she's supposed to be like, because Gerson's like in her 60s now, so like it's definitely a bit older than I think I would have expected that role to be. But the way she's made up, the voice she's doing, the outfit, the very in-your-face cleavage is from the game.
Yes.
Like it was easy to remember because it was there too. So that was heavy on the fan service.
Between what may have been actual sets, the CGI was decent in this. I couldn't tell specifically where a set stopped and a actual location ended. But between all of that, I think production value is probably going to sit at I'll say 6.5. I was almost at the 7, but like my tongue revolted. I couldn't say it. So 6.5.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you could argue the 7. I guess what I would take it down for production value for all the things that are here, because it does look fine from like a expense point of view, and that's it. Not visually good in like style or anything, but from an expense point of view, it looks fine. I would say it's the aggressive ADRing that just kind of feels a bit cheap. That kind of drags it down a little bit. One could argue that them not having like a proper fight with a big monster also feels like, and don't get me wrong, normally you wouldn't say, oh, because they don't do this it feels cheap, but in this particular case, such a big part of the game that it's adapting is that you fight monsters all the time. It is kind of weird that they're relegated to just like a joke basically for one scene, and that's kind of it. So yeah, I'll say 6. I'll say 6. Right. I've talked myself down. So, David, what is your final score for Borderlands?
Honestly, I feel weird doing this right after Revenge of the Sith, because like having to choose between these is kind of the opposite of having to choose my favorite child. Like, I hate you both so much, but you're forcing me to say one is better than the other just by default.
Not necessarily. You could score it the same.
I could, but that feels dishonest. That feels disingenuous, because I'm looking at the 4 I gave to Revenge of the Sith, and I don't think this gets a 4.
I think you overrated that movie for the record.
I probably did. Yeah. I mean, you only gave it a 3. It's not a massive difference.
Did I? Okay. I didn't remember what I gave that. I know what I'm giving this, though, so I know if I'm going up or down or equal or what.
I'm going down. I'm definitely going down, and I think it is because this feels like the most soulless corporate crash grab since Electric State, which, strangely enough, obviously came afterwards, but that's just where we're at now. I cannot give this, in good faith, anything above a 3. And I think I'm coming down to the 2.5 just out of sheer, like, I just have this extra little level of hatred, not even because I have an attachment to the IP, but because some people do. And the fact that they were waiting for, I saw on the Wikipedia article, this movie was initially announced, put into production in 2015, like pre-production. 10 years they waited for this, and this is what they got. So 2.5 final score.
Yeah, my score, it's almost perfect that the number I'm about to say means taking a shit, because it's a 2 out of 10.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going with. It is a terrible movie. It has basically nothing of value other than the mild morbid of curiosity of how bad is it, but it's not entertaining bad. There's nothing funny or weird about it that is exciting. It is bad in the most mundane way that's just depressing and has nothing of value to even discuss. There's not even like, oh, where did it go wrong? No, everything and its DNA from the ground up is sterile. And that's where we're at with this. So
I am shocked that there wasn't some executive top down who said like, hey, can we maybe in the bar scene have like a big billboard ad for Papa John's or something? Like, I was waiting for that level of just sheer corporate greed coming out of this.
Yeah, no, it's a disaster. It's a disaster that has nothing of value to offer. So obviously we cannot recommend it. There's better bad movies that you can spend your time on. Honestly, it's terrible, but if you want to laugh at a bad movie, Madam Web is genuinely a better thing to watch than this, because at least you'll be wondering, why did they choose this? Why did they choose this? Because it's baffling at times, and that is way more interesting than whatever this sludge was. So there you go. That is that. David's got his homework movie in a minute, but I'll just tell you about Patreon before we get to that. So thank you for joining us, everyone. You can support the show over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You get the show a little bit early every week, but the main attraction is the bonus content. Me and David in particular do 2 bonus shows once a month. We have Extra Reels, where we review some of the worst things ever made, a show that this movie would have been suitable on, but it happened to be sci-fi. And also Criterion Cut, where we review movies from the Criterion Collection, plus me and Tim over at Screams After Midnight do bonuses as well. So yeah, I know I'm always experimenting with new little things to add in or do or whatever. One of the tiers also includes the right to vote on an episode every month. So worth having a look and help keep the show coming if you'd like to do so. But of course, you'd also do support us via YouTube memberships, also another way if you would like. But any support is greatly appreciated. So yeah, every week on the show, David goes back and watches a movie from the ace from before he joined the show to catch up and be fully versed in all the various things. So David, what was this week's homework movie?
Well, we have the countdown coming up in a few weeks' time of the top 10 of the decade so far. So movies from 2020 to 2024. And I have been advised by legal counsel that there are a couple movies I need to watch that may or may not have been featured on the Ace. So I decided to go ahead and watch episode 527 of Screams After Midnight, which turns out is Nope.
Ah, there you go.
Yep.
Whoever told
technically sci-fi.
Yeah, whoever told you to go and watch a couple of Screams movies because they count as sci-fi is a genius and deserves to be applauded for that exceptionally good advice.
Yep. And I will never reveal who it is, so just applaud me instead, and I'll pass it along.
It was some hero, some unknown hero.
I am very vocal about not being great with horror movies. I am not confident when I go into these things. And by the way, full spoilers for Nope. I'm not going to hold anything back here.
Good to say, it's good to say that actually up front if you're going to just go for it. So yeah, spoilers for Nope.
It is very good. I did enjoy it. But no, this movie opens up with a very unsettling massacre by a chimpanzee, and I don't think I was okay with just any moment after that. Like, I was always just kind of like, something bad's gonna happen. For the movie itself, I think that it's a lot more nuanced than I was expecting, and yet still felt very approachable. My only familiarity with Jordan Peele was I watched like the first half of Get Out, and it wasn't that one was too scary. It was that I recognized that movie needed my full attention, and I did not have it to give at that time. So I turned it off until I had a better chance to do so. But no, this movie, it's got a lot of layers to it. But I think the biggest one is that the addiction to spectacle, the addiction to the idea of big things happening and what sort of consequences may come from that. And I hesitate to put Borderlands in that category of what happens when you're so focused on spectacle over content. But I really liked the acting in it. There were one or two moments that were a little bit shaky for me in the beginning, but I grew to love the characters as they developed. And then, yeah, the creature itself, what Nope ends up being about, this UFO creature, is it's such an unusual thing. Like, I don't feel like, maybe this is more common in horror circles, but I was so not used to the way that this creature was presented in the movie, and it just constantly kept me on my guard of what's going to happen next. And I think that that was a great way to set this tension to it, where even when the characters seem like they have an understanding of what to do in order to stay alive basically around this thing, it never felt like they had a full grasp on it. It never felt like there was this ability to breathe easy. So no, I visual effects wise, it looks great. Character wise, plot wise, I really like all of it. I hesitate to watch the next Planet of the Apes movie without thinking about this movie again, because it's just that much burned into my mind, to the point where I guess this is kind of a normal thing. I had to go down a little bit of a YouTube rabbit hole of like the Gordy's home, like stuff that was posted as extended material, just to try to calm my nerves a bit, and yet that did nothing to help. It just made things worse. So yeah, if you're interested in that side of things at all, I highly suggest looking up the extra material there. But no, Nope was a great movie. I really don't have much bad to say about it. I think my own personal taste keeps it from being anything higher than like 8.5, and I think honestly I'd probably come down at the 8 if I'm being honest. It just, it's one of those things that I think I need to come back to at some point to really buckle down and look through things that were set up earlier, how they pay off later, with the knowledge of them coming up. But no, it's a very well done movie.
Okay. Yeah, Nope's great. I'll just tack that on. But I spoke to Tim about it extensively on Screams After Midnight. You can go check out that episode if you want a full breakdown of everything. But it's kind of, if I was to compare it to anything structurally, it's kind of Jaws, but instead of a shark in the water, it's something in the sky, and that's kind of a cool concept in and of itself. So, all right, there you go, everyone. That is the show. We got through Borderlands. It's over. We never have to look at it again.
Hooray!
And there's never going to be a sequel. So yeah, and
you say that, but if there's one thing that Avi Arad always surprises me with, it's how he keeps making movies.
Not that I was really that interested in Borderlands 4 when it came out anyway, because like I've never really gotten all that impassioned about the previous ones. I can tell you that this movie has just kind of ensured that I definitely will not want to look at it in any way, because I'm sick of the sight of anything Borderlands related now. It feels so like, I don't know, like a product. It just feels like a product they want to shove down my throat, and I just want to reject it now, is how I feel.
Honestly, that's kind of like, I was already outside of Minecraft for many years now, but that's how I feel about it post-movie, where it's like, you cashed in, you just fully did it, and now it's just the thing that Microsoft owns, not this tiny indie game.
Yeah, I never even had any appeal for Minecraft anyway, but like the way the movie's been treated has just made me kind of like reject it even more, where I'm like, no, I'm fine. You keep that, youngins. Yeah. I'm over here doing whatever I want. Because I had friends who were see, when the game first launched, I had friends who were super into it when it was this new thing. But it kind of
was, for sure.
Yeah, it grew into this behemoth. But it never appealed to me, but yeah.
I mean, I was into it, I would say, decently just for passing the time. Like, I wasn't someone who was like super into, building these massive worlds or anything like that. Mine was just more like, all right, how much can I stockpile? What can I build? What can I do? And I think that's kind of how the game was meant to be played early on, and then just evolved into what the movie is at this point. Like, it's so much deeper than that, and I kind of just lost interest somewhere along the way.
Yeah. Anywho, we'll be back next time with, I know I'm all scrolled all the way down at the bottom. Next time we're doing the next vote winner. So next week we'll be doing the 2001 movie Evolution. So that's a curious one that I remember seeing in the theater in 2001 when I was 12 years old. So it'll be interesting to see how that shapes up. But yeah, so
I've not seen that one, but I remember the iconography of the smiley face with 3 eyes. I remember that being a thing from this movie. Yep.
That's the poster indeed. And it's from the director of Ghostbusters, so it was kind of seen as like, oh, he's going to do like a sci-fi alien like take on that.
All right.
Starring David Duchovny and a bunch of other folks. So we'll see how well it turned out next time on the Atomic Cinema Experiment. But let us know what you thought of Borderlands in the comments below if you were unfortunate enough to have seen it. Like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. It helps us out a bunch if you do it. And of course, as mentioned, Patreon, financial support, always greatly appreciated. It's what keeps the whole thing going. So thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.